An NBA insider has come out and said that he thinks Jrue Holiday could come off the bench once the regular season starts. We'll be talking about how crazy that is. Plus, ex-Celtic and Hall of Famer Kevin Garnett speaks out about the Boston Celtics' lack of depth. That and a lot more on this episode of Celtics Digest. But as always, Bruce, before we get into the video, a reminder to hit subscribe, guys. Are you watching this video right now? Do you like Celtics content? Do you like it every single day? If you do and you want it all regular season long, be part of this growing community that just passed 1,000 subs last night. We're really grateful for every single one of you. And if there's some of you out there right now who haven't hit that button and you want to be part of it, hit it now. You won't regret it. Let's dive in, Bruce. We got to talk about Jayson Tatum first. I talked about all that stuff in the intro, but before we get into that stuff, I promise we'll get into it later. We got to talk about Jayson Tatum. Now, we all know ESPN has released their top 100 players like they do every year. We talked about the huge Derrick White snub not even being ranked top 100. But they put some respect on Jayson Tatum's name, ranking him 6th as voted by ESPN's panel of NBA experts. The only people ahead of him, Stephen Curry, Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, could you argue Tatum is top 5? Yeah, probably. I mean, you could put him above someone like a Curry or even someone like a Luka if you value winning a lot. But Bruce, I'm pretty happy to see that, despite some of the Celtics snubs early on, they put some respect on Tatum's name and put him up there in the top 6 where he definitely deserves to be.
Exactly. I think Tatum definitely deserves this top 6 ranking. Obviously, from the GMs, we discussed how he was the top ranked small forward in the league. So honestly, he should be a top 5 player in the league if you're going to count that. But when you look at other positions and how players can play multiple positions at the same time, you have to kind of value Jayson Tatum a little bit lower. I think 6 is perfect for him. Obviously, guys like Curry, guys like Luka have, established their careers in the NBA. Guys like Embiid, might be questionable as the Celtics did beat him in the playoffs, but he did win MVP
Yeah.
last season, so you have to give him that. So they're basing it off of that. And I think that he deserves that 6th spot. Maybe he could be top 5, but I think that's a little bit of bias with the Celtics fans coming in there. I definitely think that he deserves top 6 though, and I'm happy that he's in the top 10 and we get some recognition up there at least for Jayson Tatum for his MVP season that I think he's going to have this year.
I think it's possible now. I mean, for him to be an MVP, he'd have to put up crazy numbers on this pretty stacked team, but I don't think that's completely ridiculous, right? He has shown the ability to improve year upon year, and to be number 6 behind, like Luka, Steph, Giannis, Jokic, and MVPs, and those 4 of those guys ahead of him in the top 5 have all won MVPs. The other was Luka. So it's like an awesome ranking. Super glad to see Tatum getting some respect. Let us know. What do you think? Is 6 too low for Tatum? Should he be top 5? Should he be even lower? Let us know, Celtics fans, down below. Let's move on to the second topic of the video, and that is Kevin Garnett, KG, speaks out on the Boston Celtics depth. He was asked in an interview, what do you think about their depth? He's like, well, listen, now this is kind of taken out of context, I'll be honest. It looked like a cool screenshot, but he did say, you do have to worry about depth in the sense that you can't just rely on your starting 5 to win you every single game. And he goes on to say that you can't have someone like Brown exhausted and then have to play these final minutes because there's no one really adequate to step in for him. The Celtics have a good top 5, solid maybe 6, 7, but after that it gets a little confusing. Do you think this could be an issue for this season, Bruce? Because we all know like some solid depth, at least a really solid 8-man rotation like the Nuggets had last year is pretty much what you need to win a title, but some people might say the Celtics don't even have that solid 8 group.
Before the Jrue Holiday trade, I definitely would have said that this was a problem, and I definitely was on this side with Kevin Garnett with the Celtics bench depth. But after watching these preseason games, I'm confident in some of our guys that we have on the bench. And I think Kevin Garnett needs to get out of that interview chair and get down to the Celtics practice facility with Paul Pierce and actually get to see how these bench guys are playing, guys, because Payton Pritchard, leading scorer in all 3 preseason games, people were talking about how that contract was unfair for him. The Celtics got robbed. Now that looks like a steal contract for the Boston Celtics right there. A guy like Neemias Queta, who we just talked about in one of our recent videos, has dominated for the Boston Celtics, looking better than a guy like Luke Kornet, who Joe Mazzulla has said is going to be the backup center. And Neemias Queta is on a 2-way contract, which means he can even grow and sign another deal, and then the Celtics could sign another 2-way guy on that deal. We also have guys like Oshae Brissett and Lamar Stevens, who, maybe not be the flashiest offensive guys, but they buy into their role on defense, can be that Grant replacement, can be that Robert Williams on defense, shot blocking, crashing the rim. We already saw that putback dunk by Oshae Brissett in that first preseason game. Like, that was awesome. So if he's going to bring that energy and that intensity onto this bench, I don't see any problems with it. And obviously, another guy that I just forgot to mention was Svi Mykhailiuk.
Right.
He's been dominant in these past 2 games shooting, and people are even saying, could he take over Sam Hauser's role? And he was one of those guys when he got signed to the Celtics, he got signed to a non-guaranteed deal, which meant his contract wasn't guaranteed until he signed his contract on the first day like of the season, which means he could have gotten cut any way down the line. He's trying to prove himself that he's dominant for this roster, and he's even proving himself to make himself a roster spot on this team. So I think that KG is a little bit not confident in this team. I think he needs to cool down the Jets a bit, because even though we might not have a dominant bench like some other teams, we have guys that can come in and pick apart offenses or defenses on a nightly basis and be the star for that team that night.
I mean, I think I couldn't have said it better myself. I think you make a great point in the sense that a lot of these guys, yeah, obviously these championship teams have like a very, very good 7 or 8 that where these guys can just cycle in. You don't lose anything with your bench guys. But the thing with the Celtics is once you get past their top like 6, 7 players, right? And then you have these other guys like an Oshae Brissett, like a Lamar Stevens, Sam Hauser, these kind of guys. I feel like on any given night, like these guys are all good enough that one of them is going to be as good as a solid 7th man or something, right? So instead of having your 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and that being very clear who each one is, you kind of have a bunch of guys who are like 7th or 8th men. And on any given night, they can fill that gap that you might lose. Like if Lamar Stevens is just not feeling it that night, Oshae Brissett steps in and he plays those minutes. Or, Sam Hauser's having an off night shooting. He's like 0 for 5, and you take him as fiba comes in and steps in. So I think that versatility, the amount of good depth bench pieces that the Celtics have, can kind of fill in and make up for the fact that, yeah, maybe they don't have the most dominant top 8-man rotation in the league, even though their starting 5 is so good. So, yeah, I mean, look, I understand where KG's coming from, and he said, hey, like, I'm not concerned. Like, I think the Celtics have definitely thought about this, but it's an interesting point, but I think you're right, Bruce. I think the Celtics are going to be a little bit better on the bench than some people think. Now time for the final thing, and this also involves the Celtics bench, and it's Jrue Holiday. Now, Zach Lowe. Look, okay, let's start from here. In the preseason, Jrue Holiday came off the bench, and Joe Mazzulla explicitly said, hey, don't look at my lineups in the preseason and take anything from it because it's going to change in the regular season. This means nothing, right? And we all knew Jrue Holiday's a new Celtic, still learning the schemes and stuff, and he said as much. But Zach Lowe, one of the biggest NBA reporters, said, I don't think that's a one-off. I don't think this was a let's see how this looks. He may end up starting a ton of games, sure. Injuries, nights off, matchups just being good, so we have to start him. But he says that, the problem is a lot of the time when Tatum comes out of the game, they struggle. So you want to have a guy like Jrue Holiday who can come in, right? Holiday with Jaylen Brown on the floor because the Curry on the bench minutes in Golden State. Tatum on the bench has been a problem now for a lot of years. And then Jrue Holiday kind of said, I think it's about time on the court, getting a chance to play with them, see what's going to happen, see where I'm supposed to be and where I'm going to be getting the ball. That's why he thought, he came off the bench. But he said, we're not sure if he's willing to sacrifice it when it comes to the regular season. So this is interesting, Bruce, because in my mind, like, Jrue Holiday is essentially untouchable in the starting lineup. He is, as voted by the GMs, like one of the best defenders in the NBA, second best according to them, best perimeter defender. Other players like Dame have said the same thing, not just him. Everyone loves Jrue Holiday, fantastic playmaker, solid 3rd or 4th level scorer, and one of the best defenders in the league. I just don't see a world where he actually starts the season off the bench.
Neither do I. And like you said, Joe Mazzulla said, don't look at my lineups, please. And Zach Lowe, after seeing that, goes, okay, I'll just tweet right now. Like, come on, dude. Like, he just said that. I don't believe it. I think that Jrue Holiday is going to be starting for this Celtics team. Obviously, he's one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, voted by GMs. He's going to be a top-tier player for the Celtics. And yeah, you might say, oh, with your problems with Derrick White or with Payton Pritchard and your starting lineups, the Celtics are going to have a different starting lineup every single night, guys. There's not going to be a set starting lineup. Some guy like Jrue Holiday might start one night, depending if they have a big lineup. We might be having Horford and Porzingis starting. And obviously, there's going to be nights where we play on back-to-backs. If someone's having a good back-to-back night, you might see Derrick White get the start. Or if Jrue Holiday, played sloppy on defense late in the 4th quarter of the first back-to-back, maybe in the second back-to-back, he's getting taught a lesson and is going to come off the bench. Like, these are things Joe Mazzulla is going to do to throw off other teams as well, as we have so many different depth guys, like we mentioned in the past. I think that a lot of these teams aren't going to be able to, scout and actually get a game plan for the Boston Celtics, as they have so many different options. Realistically, any night, anyone can go off.
Yeah, 100%. Like there's a lot of depth scoring on the Celtics. A lot of, not so much depth playmaking, I suppose, but let's kind of discuss this though. Like in a world where Joe Mazzulla goes crazy and he's like, you know what? I actually like this idea. What if we bring Jrue Holiday off the bench? And let's say we start Derrick White and we start Al Horford, and that's the de facto starting 5 going forward. Do you see a world where that could work? Because like I understand to some extent the perspective of if Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum want to come out, you have Jrue Holiday in, and he's able to really influence the game. You always can have at least 2 of Holiday, Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, or even Derrick White. Like always have 2 or 3 of them in the game, and taking Jrue off the bench sort of makes that a little bit easier. I get it from some perspective. Like, In this world, let's assume that Missoula has agreed on this already. Do you see it maybe working?
I could see it definitely working out for the Celtics, as you could take some pressure off of Payton Pritchard being the main ball handler off the bench. And Jrue Holiday, we've seen, and Payton Pritchard can both play on ball or off ball.
Mhm.
So if they were to play as a backcourt duo, I think they would succeed very well for the Boston Celtics. But ultimately, I don't think Brad Stevens, as a general manager, goes out and makes this move if he's not starting Jrue Holiday.
Great point.
Like, he already had Derrick White as the starting point guard. There was no need to go out and be like, oh, let's go just trade Robert Williams to get another bench guard. That doesn't make sense to me. It has to be that Jrue Holiday's gonna be starting to make the trade. Obviously, you're giving up so much. Malcolm Brogdon as well. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It would work, I think, but GM Brad, if he was smart, like he has been, and making Celtics fans so happy, like, bringing Kristaps Porzingis in, bringing Jrue Holiday, the whole Kristaps Porzingis move has changed my mind as a huge Marcus Smart believer. So honestly, GM Brad thinks smart, think he's doing the right move, and you think he'll start Jrue Holiday. I don't think Zach Lowe's meaning much.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you. What do you guys think? Do you think a super six-man Jrue Holiday could work, or do you think he should be in the starting lineup like we do? Let us know down below. We love to always read your comments. But that'll do it for this news episode of Celtics Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. If you're still here watching at this point in the video and you haven't hit it, why not? What are you missing out on? You love the video. We have a lot more where this one came from. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Bruce Veliz. We'll catch you in the next one.